So, you have a 3-kilo ball. What is the best option? We take a plane, AB-29, fly to Hiroshima, open it, release the ball and hope that the ball lands on a Japanese person's head. We kill a Japanese person. Ridiculous. It's a huge expense to kill a Japanese person by throwing a ball at him. Wouldn't it be better to use the energy that is inside the uranium or plutonium ball? It doesn't matter. You can throw the ball and it will land on a Japanese person's head, if you're lucky, or you can release the energy partially, because only 14% of the energy that was there worked, according to the technology of that time, but you can separate the proton from the neutron, separate the strong nuclear force, which is what you see as an explosion. It is simply the strong nuclear force that was released. It is joining the proton and the neutron. It is released like a billiard table. One ball hits the other ball. It was released, and 100,000 people were killed instantly. It's that explosion you saw, 6,000 degrees Celsius. Either you throw the ball, the mass, or you use the energy, the wave, that is in the ball, in the same ball. Well, it's necessary to explain how to do something like that so that people can understand. What's the difference between one thing and the other? If you don't understand, we, humanity, continue to treat everything, other than war, as a ball, as a particle. You can solve all problems by treating the issue as a wave. So, see that mass is equal to energy. In the case of electromagnetism, energy is equal to information. Energy is equal to information. So, this electrical energy that arrives here, leaving a tapu, has information inside it. It's not used. Only the energy was used. It goes into the socket, comes out here in the lamp, emits photons and lights up the environment. But is it information that's coming? It doesn't mean anything, it's being lost, it's not being used for anything. The information that's in that chair is also not being used for anything. We're just using the particle chair, did you notice? The little ball, particle chair. Everything that exists in the universe is pure information, we just need to change the angle of view. He points to a person in the audience, has DNA, do we need it to see that he's like that? No. We only need his DNA, which fits on a CD, according to current science. Collect a drop of his saliva, take it to the lab and do the DNA mapping that fits on a CD. Do we have to take him somewhere? With 60, 80 kilos? No, take a CD, in fact, we can send it by email. On the other side, he analyzes this information, takes the atoms, puts them all together and forms a copy of himself. Is it a clone? It's a clone. But nowadays, don't they make clones anymore? What's the problem? But they do it using the particle method. You have to take a cell, enter the nucleus of that cell to divide, to create the sheep, to duplicate. You are treating it as a particle. Remember? Ball, particle. Can't you do that with his wave? Of course, just like the wave was used to generate the Hiroshima explosion, you use his wave. His wave has all his information. All his information is in his wave. He doesn't need his DNA, do you realize what an advance that will be? He doesn't need his DNA, he doesn't need his particle side, we only need his wave side. Does it sound like science fiction? It does, doesn't it? But it's pure physics. Pure physics. The same way that people would talk about an atomic bomb 200, 300, 400 years ago, it would seem like science fiction. In fact, until December 1939, no one believed that it was possible to separate the proton from the neutron. It was the urgency of war that made people move a little. So, when it matters, the progress is enormous. Until that moment, no one had moved on anything about energy equals mass. Einstein had already done that 30, 35, 40 years ago and no one had given a damn about it. But, at the moment when someone else can have the little ball and use the energy from the ball, we have to have it too. Everyone went after it, and in 2 or 3 years, the atomic bomb was made. Really fast. It took thousands of years, 205 years of double slitting. 205 years of double slits, and when it became interesting, they quickly used the atomic concept to make a weapon. That's how it is, and it continues to be that way. This information never reaches the general population. Why? Because it is in the greatest interest to maintain the current materialist paradigm. You can't change anything, right? This affects many interests, so you can't change anything. People need to continue believing that there are no atoms, no waves, no information. The only information that has information is radio and television, which can be transferred. The radio and television waves carry a code that is placed in them. That's not the information I'm talking about. The information I'm talking about is intrinsic to the electromagnetic field. It already has its information, everything it thinks is already recorded in that electromagnetic field. Everything it feels is already recorded in the electromagnetic field. We don't know how to get that out of it. That's another story. Another story. Nowadays, you can pick up a magazine that shows, it was a discussion from 50 years ago, now it's in the magazine, that the information in the book continues to exist in the ashes of the burned book, and in the smoke of the burned book. It was in Scientific American magazine in October or November of last year. It's already in the magazine. Did you notice the difference? But 50 years ago it was a huge discussion. Now, they already know that the information is there. They don't know how to access the information. It's another story, but it's there. Now, what's the difference between a burned book, for him, points to a person in the audience, alive and well, like he is here? There's no difference at all. The book has an electromagnetic field and he has one too. The information in the book is in the ashes of the book or in the smoke. In fact, it's in the electromagnetic field of the book, and it's in the field that it permanently emits. Doesn't that change everything? It completely changes society. The entire organization, the entire philosophy, the entire economy, literally everything. At a certain frequency, the frequency contains the information, the electromagnetic field, it vibrates, right? Each frequency has its own use. With this frequency, you can transmit any type of information you want, to as many people as you want. If you have a satellite, you can send information to an entire country, an entire continent. Whatever you want. Everything is frequency, everything is wave, everything is information. It can be personalized, as I do when you receive the harmonic resonance CD. It is just for you. Or it can be done in a general way, covering an entire population in any way you want. Infinite possibilities, as they say in quantum mechanics. Let's stop on this subject for a moment and talk about another one, because all of this is correlated. Remember the jar? The jar is still empty. Let's suppose that you wanted to fill this jar with emotional relationships, another tremendous difficulty, because everything is difficult on planet Earth. Why? Because the paradigm is not understood. The current paradigm is materialistic. Therefore, it doesn't work, because reality is not material, reality is a wave that you are trying to treat as matter. Forget it, because it will never work. Okay, in relationships there is a rule, a law, very simple, and this issue extends to all other areas of your life. Everything is attraction, remember? Electromagnetic field. Electro sends and magnetic attracts. So, you attract exactly what you are. What you are, you attract. It is a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual summation. Add the frequency of all this, divide, and you will find an average. It is an electromagnetic signature. What you emit, is what comes back, always, inevitably. The Easterners understood this a long time ago, but in the West it is Greek, as they say. In relationships there is something called yin and yang. Negative pole, positive pole. It has nothing to do with moral or ethical judgments. The subject is negative, the subject is positive, forget about it. I am talking about physics, polarity. You have yin, which is the feminine aspect, and yang, which is the masculine aspect. It is always underneath this. We all have both polarities. Unfortunately, most of us don't have this balanced. So, you may be more yang or more yin. You, on your own, have a dysfunction, so to speak, because your personal magnet, your field, is lame in attracting what you want. If you are well balanced, it becomes very easy to attract. What happens? You have an enormous magnetic field, which people call personal magnetism, charisma, personality, presence. In physics, what would that be? The person has an almost perfect balance between yin and yang. If he has balanced yin and yang, he would have protons and electrons. Remember the atom? It has a field. If it is too yang, it has no field, because it would only have protons, it would be a monopoly, that doesn't exist, or only electrons. It doesn't work and you can't attract anything you want, money, health, relationships, work, etc. You need to be balanced, centered, perfect yin and yang, so that, on your own, you have a gigantic field and you attract. Well, let's count on one hand the number of people who have reached this situation. Hardly. Without understanding the concept and without working hard, no one gets there. It is the result of enormous evolution. It takes time to reach something like this. How did nature, the universe, solve this issue? Because you alone, it's difficult. If you put a yang being together with a yin being, both have yin and yang, but the proportion can be 99% yang and 1% yin in one person, or it can be 80% yin and 20% yang in another. That doesn't create a field, everything is lame. I'm talking about a person. When looking for a relationship, you need to find someone who can complement this. Who can complement each other together, to form what? An electromagnetic field. To form an electromagnetic field, this means, look at the practical side of things, when everything is going well between two people, they are in a relationship, there is a field, it can be huge, everything is attracted, then there is prosperity, health, growth, earnings, purchases, everything is fine, wonderful. There is yin and yang working. It complements, creates the electromagnetic field around the two people, and attracts everything. So, everything goes well, everything runs smoothly, easy, everything is easy. But this is not normal, it is not common. What is common nowadays is that those who are alone do not find anyone to form a field. Those of you who do resonance have an easier time with this, because resonance, by itself, transfers enough yin and yang to balance. Remember what I said. You are centered, you are balanced. Sooner or later, after a certain amount of time, you have received so much yang information and so much yin information that you balance yourself, and so you, alone, begin to progress. You can see this. But it is the population that does not do resonance, that does not understand this concept. What happens? It is literally impossible, because if there is no yin-yang, there is no field, and without a field there is no attraction, of anything. So, you see, this demonstrates the issue of the wave, which is two waves connecting to form this field. This is the key to relationships. If you don't have someone who complements your yang or your yin correctly, forget that it's impossible for this to work. In a relationship, you inevitably attract a yang or a yin. Two yangs will never work as a relationship. Bad and poor partners can be partners, and that's it. Because even in a business partnership, this influences, it becomes lame. If you have two yangs, it doesn't form a field. Relationships only work if they are complementary. They can't be antagonistic. Just this week, I met someone who likes to party and the other doesn't. How is this going to work? Impossible, you see. They are not complementary. Like attracts like, in terms of frequency, because there needs to be harmony. You won't attract your opposite, your enemy, you will attract something similar, but it is similar, not the same. This similarity needs to be complementary, because otherwise, it won't form a field. You can have a partnership, two yins or two yangs. What is the relationship between these two people like? Do they have someone yang? Do both of them have someone yang, complementary? There is a field here, working, there is another field here, so these two are attracting. So they are already attracting. If you have two partners, who have a field formed with other people, of course, the partnership works. But it works because both of them have a field, so one is already attracting, the other two, they can come together and join forces. So far so good, the field has to be an effective relationship, otherwise, it won't form a magnet. Do you see that the relationship between brother, father or son, daughter, mother, what happens in families? What happens within families is very complicated. This means that rarely within a family is there any kind of yin-yang harmony. Because generally, people who have problems with each other, at least one of them is born within the family. If we don't understand each other, how can I reach a peaceful agreement with you if I don't have contact with you? You were born in China, I was born in Brazil, I'll never meet you, no problem. Neither for you nor for me, the problem becomes eternal. Our quarrel will never be resolved. How can this be done? The only way is, we are father and son, brothers, sister, mother, something like that, some arrangement has to be made so that we have contact, in any way, and that it cannot be dissolved. And we need to find a way to pacify both of us. That's why problems are within families. Because if we were strangers, we would never have contact again in life, and everything would be fine. Have you ever imagined if we had to analyze a relationship, a potential partner, analyze all the information he has rationally, take the data he has and check it? It's not possible. This calculation of trillions of things is done unconsciously, because the brain is a hologram. It's holographic, it's not linear, it analyzes everything simultaneously. You look at it, 15 seconds later, you already know if you're interested or not. There's a possible complementary energy or not. The yin-yang is hitting or not. When you look at someone, you already feel it. What do we call it? Sympathy. Antipathy. That's the name given, in terms of the psychology of the thing, but in physical terms, just by looking at it, the wave, because when you look at it, what happens? His electromagnetic wave enters me through my eyes. Everything we see is electromagnetic waves that enter my eyes, pass through the optic nerve, which transports this information to the brain. The brain creates countless algorithms and decodes this reality. We only see electromagnetic waves, we only hear electromagnetic waves, in hertz. Remember the dog? From 20 to 20,000 hertz. The dog hears more than us. Why? Because our ears are programmed to only recognize from 20 to 20,000 hertz, and the dog's for more than that. It's a difference in DNA, his code is different from ours, that's all. So his wave penetrates me through my eyes. I do all the calculations, and the brain already reaches a conclusion. Why doesn't the wave that entered me have all his information? All his information is in his wave. I don't need to know his profession or resume. That's later, it's a detail. I need to know the overall waveform of the person, whether it is compatible with my waveform. That is what the brain does when you look at a person and find them interesting or not. In the first 15 seconds, it is actually less than that. In 3 seconds you already know whether they are or are not. 3 seconds is too fast for you to reach an analytical conclusion about whether you are interested in talking to this person, for relationship purposes or not. It takes 15 seconds. Because the brain's processing rate is very slow. But the analysis of the person takes billionths of a second. You caught a glimpse, you captured the waveform, you processed all of that, you already know who is who, and you feel aversion or sympathy. That is it. As you deepened the level of analysis of the other person's waveform, new information emerged. But normally, intuition is right. When you look at someone and don't feel good, you can trust that something is wrong. Because intuition is the way for information to emerge from the conscious, very subtle, about who is wrong. We are interconnected all the time. You can receive information and send it to a specific person whenever you want. All you have to do is think about the person and a channel opens. This also applies to inanimate objects. In the book Interconnected Minds / Dean Radin, there is an experiment that was done in a laboratory with a doll. A doll is taken, and a person touched the doll, entangled it. The doll goes to a room that is electromagnetically sealed. The doll is taken and taken to another room. They are completely isolated, in this universe. Why? Electromagnetically, it is from this universe. The experiment showed that if you took a feather and tickled the doll's shoulder, and the doll had all the devices connected to it, to take the measurements, the man immediately, instantly, reacted to the touch that was made to the doll. All of this has been measured and proven. Did you realize how far this goes? So, everything that is said and conventionally called voodoo is all physics. If people understood, all possible manipulation would end. But this will only end on the planet when people understand physics. Otherwise, you will continue to be under the thumb of those people who have academic or empirical knowledge of physics. The sorcerer who knows how to create a physical entanglement with it, indicates a person in the audience, by whatever means, and do something against it, is an empirical one. It does not untangle. You change your frequency. You leave one reality and go to another. You can only be affected in a frequency range. When you think good, you raise your frequency, because the vibration speed of the atom increases extremely. When you think good, love raises your frequency. When you think hate, your frequency is low. Any feeling of hate lowers your frequency. Any feeling of love raises your frequency. The only defense you have is to raise your frequency, because you are entangled. Entanglement has another consequence, remember? Physicists say that 13 billion years ago, there was the Big Bang, and that all of this was generated from a single energy. It took a while for atoms to start forming, because the wave came, then the subparticles, then the protons were formed, then the atoms, the chemical elements, the planets, the galaxies, and all of this started to form. But this started, let's follow the reasoning of physics. It started with a single point in the space-time continuum, a single point, a single, immense energy, which expanded. If this started from a single point, what does that mean? Everything else that came after and that became all of this. Everything is entangled because of the Big Bang. Everything that exists in the entire universe is under entanglement. Everything you do affects the rest of the universe. And what they do affects us too. Because it started from a single point. In that single point, everything was united. Physics, huh? Physics. We are not talking about ideology. Nowadays, we can take an electron, entangle it with another, release them and use them to make a quantum computer. We are already at a level of organization up here. In the Big Bang, you are down here. At this level, we can entangle. At this level, everything is entangled. There is only one energy which has been subdividing, expanding that wave. This means that everything that exists is entangled, therefore it is interconnected. Everything. Everything that exists in the universe. So, everything you do affects everything else. Anything you do against the rest, that harms, that gives another person a negative charge, for example, you affected everything else. That is why you created antimatter, you did something against it. Isn't it made of matter? If you did something against it, you did something against its matter. Since everything is entangled, you need to create antimatter to balance the general energy balance of the universe. If we only have matter, there can be no universe. It would be chaos. When the Big Bang happened, matter and antimatter were created all the time, and they collided. In billionths of a second, they disappeared. They cancelled each other out. A remnant remained, a little bit. That little bit is this universe. Can you get an idea of the energy that was in that place? That tiny remnant of energy, of matter, is our entire universe. That alone does not imply that someone had to observe it, to cause it to remain, because according to physics, according to the laws of physics, matter and antimatter need to collide for the two to disappear, to cancel each other out. If they did not cancel each other out, in a small percentage, how is this possible? There is only one explanation: there must be an observer who collapsed the wave function of this. The observer chooses X% of matter that will remain, and the rest collides and disappears. This universe is created. There must be an observer doing this. We return to the double slit. When you observe, and mentally choose, I want just one slit, and release the ball, release the electron, guess what? It passes through one slit, like a particle. If we choose two slits, it passes like a wave, it passes through both. We choose this mentally. The simple fact that the physicist is in the laboratory thinking, and in his head he thinks, I'm going to do such and such an experiment, or one slit or two slits, the entire measuring apparatus already changes, according to the intention of what he is going to do. He hasn't done it yet, he just thought, and the entire apparatus responds to his intention, this in the physics laboratory, can you imagine? And then, in the retardation effect experiment, the electron has already passed, but it hasn't reached the sensor yet, let's say, it's still traveling, 1 or 2, so we change, it has already passed and we close a slit and look on the wall back there, what's there? As incredible as it may seem, there's a particle. How is something like that possible? That's why they say, no one understands quantum mechanics, do you see? It's called the retardation effect experiment. After it has already passed, if you have two slits, it always passes as a wave, always, it has already passed. If later you decide to close a slit, what appears? A particle, and where are the two waves that have already passed?